Welcome to the Smart Dating Academy podcast. I'm Bela Gandhi, the founder of Smart Dating Academy and your host. I started Smart Dating Academy in 2009 because I had this crazy knack of giving people dating advice that actually worked, that I took. I've been married for almost 25 years, and now my company helps people to date smarter and to find love. This podcast is meant to bring more love into your life, no matter where you are and what you do. And we're here to bring more life into your love. Okay, so when you guys have the same question 17 times, I figure it is my duty and obligation to you, dear listener, to answer your question. People are all over the question, what is love bombing? Have I been love bombed? Am I a love bomber? And I have a guest today, Dr. Katherine Helm, who's a professor of psychology and director of graduate programs in counseling at Lewis University. So guys, she's a heavy hitter, and she is not only going to define the hell out of what is love bombing, but we are going to compare that and contrast that to what is a love bomber versus a love seeker. So put your seatbelts on, y'all, because we are ready for a ride. And with that, Katherine, welcome to the Smart Dating Academy podcast. We are so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Bella. I'm so glad to be here.
All right, let's jump right into this. We hear the word, we've talked a lot, you and I talked about narcissist. What's a narcissist? What's just, someone who's a jerk or an asshole? And right? But tell us about what is love bombing?
Yeah. See, love bombing is interesting because you know it when you felt it, right? So the original term was coined in the 1970s, and it was used to get people involved with a cult.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Wait, what? Love bombing?
Yes.
It's meant to get people into a cult. That's insane.
Right. It is. And if you've ever gone on a date with someone new, especially very early in the relationship, and all of a sudden they're ridiculously complimentary, they shower you with gifts, right? Before you ever even really know each other, that's a good sign you've been love bombed.
Wow. And I mean, let me ask you this. How do you know if someone is just clueless and they've read too many romance books? Let's say it's a dude, just for example. Yeah. And let's say he's just coming in hot.
Yeah.
And he's a romantic, or is he a love bomber? What's the difference? How do we tell?
Oh, so that's a great question, right? And then sometimes the answer is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Okay.
So let me kind of sort of unpack this a little bit and talk even more about what love bombing is. So some of those characteristics. So, love bombing, the love bomber is often more interested in themselves than the other person. It's often about the image, right? And the love bombing act is really designed to get the other person indebted to them. So they come across as all consuming, they seek to completely dominate the other person's social world. So it's not just gifts and excessive compliments, but it's really about power and control. Right. And once those, gifts are coming and excessive compliments and, this person thinks you're wonderful. But one of the pieces that's missing, right? So we're talking today about love bombing versus love seeking, right? So the romantic guy, as you described, who's kind of clueless, but not a love bomber, would be open to input.
Okay, that's a very good distinction. So give me a scenario, Katherine, where he is open for input. Tell our listeners, because I'm sure we're all sitting here going, have I been love bombed? Was that love bomber-y-esque, whatever the adjective is? Or is this just someone who's clueless and trying too hard?
Right. So here's a scenario. Bella, I'm going to ask you, when you go to a restaurant, does your husband order for you or do you order for yourself?
I order for myself, and I'll say after 25 years of marriage, I personally sort of wish that he could order for me. But that's a whole sidebar discussion. Like, do you know what I would eat in general? Like, my girlfriends could all order for me, right? But men, I'm joking. But no, 100%. He would let me order. He would give me agency to order what I wanted to order.
What if you're on a first date with him, and he's not your husband, of course, and he orders for you?
I would be like, oh, that's interesting. Are you going to eat all of that? Because that's not what I wanted.
Yes. So that's a sign that you've been loved, Bob. You weren't asked, right? It's not like it's a French restaurant, and you don't speak French and he does. Right. So it's really about power and control. The love bomber feels good about himself or herself when they do all of these acts. It's about them. It's not about you. So one of the ways to know if you're being love bombed is, does this person take input from you, or do they just assume what you want? So love bombing, the person's making all kinds of assumptions that they're not checking out with you. Boundaries are being broken, and most people are really uncomfortable with it.
Okay, I love this. So if we snap back to, I'm on a first date with, let's say it's Andy, my husband, or someone else, just anybody. And if he says, we will have, the pate and the foie gras and blah, blah, blah. Now, if I'm a little confused at this point, I could say, I'd like to also add a couple of things to that. Now, a good response would be, he's like, oh my God, absolutely. I come here so often that these are like the two best things, but absolutely order something else. That would be a potential that would get him out of the red flag love bombery category, maybe, and put him into the, he takes input and didn't, blow a lid about this.
That's right. And so, when you're first dating someone, you want it, or most people want it to be somewhat collaborative. Right. And so it's about learning what those boundaries are together. Everybody makes mistakes. Even the love seekers make mistakes. Right. So going back to our, good-hearted guy who really wants to make an impression, and he's, let's say, a hopeless romantic, you might see similar things. You might see, these over-the-top gestures. But usually the person will check in with you. Right. And if you're feeling uncomfortable and you say something, they'll feel really like, oh, my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I'm so sorry. But usually what happens with a love bomber is they might get angry. This is the ugly side of love bombing. Right. They might, call you ungrateful. You might see pouting behavior.
So if he ordered the foie gras and the pate, let's say, and those aren't my favorite things, if I said, could I add a veggie or two to that? He would cross his arms and he would be mad at me.
Could very well be, for sure. But you're going to tend to get a negative response with the love bombers. Love bombers, because remember, the act of love bombing is not about you. It's about the other person kind of showing off, dominating. When those efforts are not met with like, oh my gosh, that's amazing, you're wonderful, they tend to get angry or feel superficially hurt or get offended, become defensive.
And Katherine, do normal mortals also love bomb, or is this exclusively in the category of people that are narcissistic?
It's a good sign of narcissism.
Okay.
However, I think we're talking about an important thing, because sometimes it is difficult to know. Who is your hopeless romantic that just kind of got it wrong, right? Versus your love bombers. So what happens with the love bomber is over time, those gestures dry up very quickly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they come on strong.
They come on very, very strong. And it's almost like there's, like with narcissism, with a narcissist, you have to feed the narcissist constantly, right? So with a love bomber, you can never be appreciative enough. You can never be grateful enough.
Right. So they are a cousin of the narcissist.
Well, they're often one and the same.
They're
A
one and
lot
the
of
same.
narcissists love bomb first.
And you say, yeah, and I'm thinking about our conversations, and you say love bombers, like this is all like they're coming on strong. They're filling up your cup, overflowing your cup, but it's meant to entrap you, potentially to dominate, control. Talk a little bit about that. Like, what's the end game?
Yeah. So the end game is to control you. The end game is to show dominance. And some psychologists believe it's even indicative of a cycle of abuse, right? Where the love bomber can do things like isolate you from your friends and family over time, right? Because the love bomber wants to be the center of your world. They may get offended when you go out with your friends without, he or she, but they want to be your center of everything, which is really unhealthy.
And it sounds suffocating.
Yes. So in the beginning, these gestures, maybe you feel special, right? You feel like, wow, this person is really into me. I've never had this before. But, those gestures don't stop. They might get even more and more extravagant. And you get really uncomfortable with them. But the love bomber is not interested in your feelings. And they're usually not very good listeners either.
So is there something that you can tell, dear listener, like if this happens, you might be being love bombed? Like, are there certain phrases you hear, certain telltale things that they do? Like straight out of the love bomber's playbook?
Yes. So they say, I love you really quickly. They might start talking about a long-term commitment very early in the relationship. They're going to feel too good to be true. They're excessive, way over the top, constantly complimenting you. And again, what happens is usually people who are being love bombed, eventually it gets really uncomfortable, right? And so in dating, and Bella, you talk about this all the time, you want to pay attention to your instincts. If something doesn't feel very good, the chances are it's not very good. They're too good to be true.
And where it gets so gray, Katherine, you're right. I mean, we work on this a lot with our clients at Smart Dating Academy. It's when we come in, when let's say men and women will come to us and their cups, they're metaphorical. Your cup is so empty and it seems like there's a hole in the bottom of it. Like ain't nothing going to fill that cup up. Right. Mm-hmm. And suddenly somebody comes along with a big piping hot, vat of coffee and they're just pouring you a bottomless cup, right? And for people that have been in abusive relationships, or they've been in relationships with avoidance where they've been iced out or stonewalled or had no communication, had no physical affection, love bombing almost seems like it comes straight out of the movies. Like this is what love is supposed to be like. It's supposed to be passionate and extravagant and big, right? From the beginning. And this is where so many people, I think, get trapped.
Well, it's like sex in the movies. I mean, it doesn't really look like that, does it?
Hell no.
No, like everybody has an orgasm at the same time. It's like the perfect orchestra. No bodily fluids, nothing. That's not real. And the love bomber is not actually real either, right? And soon they begin to make demands of you too. But I want to go back to something you said. There's a difference between filling your cup and overfilling your cup. And the love bomber constantly seeks to overfill your cup. And then the gestures dry up really quickly. They just stop.
Wow. It's like they're trying to take you off your game and it's like uber seductive. And then it stops and you're like, hey, where's the coffee flowing out of that big carafe? And it's like, it was imaginary coffee. It was never real.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. And again, the love bomber doesn't want your input. They don't actually care about you and don't seek to know who you are. You're, again, going back to our hopeless romantic, who just kind of gets it wrong or maybe gets the boundaries wrong. This person actually cares and they're open to making change and collaborating with you.
I love that. And that's a perfect segue. We were talking about love bombers versus love seekers. So, love bombing, let's just suffice it to say, is wrong. It's bad. It might feel good in that moment. It's like, what people might describe as like a hit of heroin or cocaine. I don't know. I've never done a drug. I have no clue, but that it feels really, really good, that instant hit, but then it feels really, really bad the next day. So it sounds like if love bombing makes you feel like you're on top of the world and it feels almost too good to be true, most likely it is too good to be true.
Absolutely. It is absolutely too good to be true. So while you're feeling really good in the moment, you have to typically remember what might come next. And when those gestures disappear, so our love seekers, our hopeless romantics, those gestures typically don't disappear. And then they use input. They may notice that you like something, like I like the color green. And so maybe they give you, something that's green that you really like. Where a love bomber, they don't always care what you like because it's about them. It's about the gesture.
And if a love bomber does listen to what you like and deliver that, it's still just a tactic of manipulation. It's meant to throw you off your game. If I'm going to devour you, I'm going to listen to you like I have never listened to anybody before because I want to get to know you, know what you love so I can push your buttons and control you.
Yeah. So you say it's emotionally manipulative. It's performative. These are performing gestures. And these gestures bring them the attention that they need. It's not really about you.
Right. And they just want to get what you want. So let's talk about the good people. Let's talk about a love seeker. What is a love seeker?
Well, and I don't know. I'd like to think we're all love seekers, but
amen. I am.
Early in a dating relationship, this is somebody who, wants to feel good about themselves and about you and about the relationship. So they're interested in getting to know who you are. They're interested in building a genuine connection with you, right? And possibly even and hopefully a longer term commitment. But again, the difference between love bomber and love seeker is a love seeker can be more collaborative. They take input and they're interested into getting to know who you are. Hopefully our love seekers have a solid sense of self. A love bomber typically does not have a solid sense of self, right?
Yeah. So let's say if I'm a dater and I write in my profile, my favorite flowers are hydrangeas and peonies.
Yes.
And if my first date shows up with a cute little bouquet of hydrangeas and peonies, that isn't necessarily being love bombed, is it? Because I can guess a lot of people will go, okay, is this opening up the floodgates to somebody who's going to love bomb me? Like, what do you say to someone like that?
Well, when you said that, I just thought, oh, how sweet, right?
Right?
You bring one bouquet of flowers on a first date. I mean, wouldn't most of us be charmed by that? But
super charmed.
If you go on a date with someone and then the next day, buckets of flowers start showing up, then you might be being love bombed.
Right.
Again,
right.
The appropriate gesture versus the over-the-top gesture is a big difference. And if your romantic guy or girl is over the top and they get feedback like, oh, this is too much, they'll dial it back.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a little bit of a side note, guys that are listening to this, but if someone seems like it might be a little much, but they're a love seeker, this is where your adeptness as an emotionally healthy dater is going to come into play. If something seems a little much to you, don't flip out on the person. Don't come off. I always tell our clients, assume positive intent in people's actions before you take the negative story, right? So if somebody gives you a bouquet of flowers, let's say we'll go back to me, and if it's hydrangeas and peonies, and if I feel like, wow, that was like a big bouquet, it wasn't a little bouquet, like it took up the table big, right? Now, at that moment, let's assume that the boy is open for input and he's a love seeker. You can say, this was so amazing and so thoughtful. And it's like, incredibly extravagant and I'm touched, and just know I would love to go out with you again. And you do not need to do these things all the time. I'm so charmed and I love this. So you can deliver that message with white gloves versus crossing your arms and saying, that was a little much. I think I don't need that again. Right. Because guess what? You're not going to get, you ain't going to get the bouquet of flowers. You're not going to get the second date because
You're
people
not gonna
get their
get the
feelings
second date.
hurt. Right.
Yes.
So when in doubt, assume positive intent, deliver
Yes.
your message with grace. Now, how do you know? Okay, well, if I deliver my message with grace, remember what Katherine said, the love bomber does not take input. He'll be like, are you ungrateful? You don't appreciate that I did this? Are you telling me what to do for the next several dates? Danger, Will Robinson. That is a love bomber in the room.
Yeah. And, here's the other thing too. The love seeker also likes to receive romantic gestures. The love bomber, not so much.
Oh, interesting. So love
Yes.
bombers, they just want to bomb. They don't want to be bombed.
No, they don't want to be bombed because it's about power and control of you.
That's their game. So they don't want you playing their game.
No, you don't get to play their game. Nope. So only one person has the baseball, Bella.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, maybe I would have to bring him a bigger bouquet of flowers the next.
Yeah. See what happens when you do that.
Oh my gosh. That is, so how do you know? I guess, I'm thinking to myself to give people this crystal clarity. You've been love bombed if it feels like it's too much and the person doesn't react well to you, even if you deliver your message with love and assuming positive intent, right? And so let me ask you, what should you do if this sounds resonant? And if you feel like, oh my God, I think I'm in a new dating relationship with a love bomber, what do you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one, I think you have to be honest and say, I'm not ready for this. I appreciate the gestures, but this is kind of too much for me. And pretty soon, actually, it'll come to an end. The person may get very angry, but once those gestures aren't appreciated, the love bomber is not being fed, right? And so oftentimes they may go off and find somebody else.
Another victim.
Yes. Now, let's talk a little bit about the dark side or the ugly side of love bombing, right? It's indicative of narcissism. Sometimes it's indicative of abuse. And sometimes the love bomber gets really angry, especially if those gestures have gone on for a while. I spent all this money on you. Who do you think you are? Right. And so pretty soon the veneer comes off and all of those over the top gestures stop. And you will know that you've been love bombed because the love bomber will not continue it endlessly. They're looking for something. No.
And is there a point, Katherine, where the love bombing stops and it switches? Like, what is that point?
Yeah. And it might be different for every love bomber. But remember that the love bomber is a very jealous person. They don't want other people to compete for your attention. Right. So one way to stop a love bomber is to maintain your own active life. You don't just shut things down, right, and start focusing only on this one person. That's another way to know you've been love bombed, because if you start giving things up, you're feeding love bombing behavior. And you're basically saying, look, this is okay. I'm uncomfortable with this, even if you are not.
Yeah. And it's funny, like the tightrope walk, which I know you and I are familiar with the work that we do is, a lot of the research points to the fact that men fall in love faster and harder than women do, right? We're more discerning. It takes us longer. And so I work with this with our coaching clients all the time at Smart Dating Academy. It's like, what is, it's okay that he wants to get exclusive with you sooner than you want to. It's okay that he might invite you to his house in Cabo. It's okay that he, brings you pretty earrings, right? But what you have to put the boundaries around it. And you have to say, that is such a beautiful gesture that you gave me these diamond earrings. And I would love to accept them at some point when our relationship is exclusive, and then you can give that person the hurdles. Maybe it's, I would, and take the accountability on yourself. I don't want to rush into something. And while this is incredibly lovely, let's hold on. And when somebody that's good for you is going to respond to that, and they're going to say, okay, a couple of episodes ago, dear listener, if you heard, we told the story of the 15-date rule. And Katherine, if you're not familiar with this, we have people go slow and steady. They build their dating funnels, and we're not getting exclusive till we've gone on 15 to 20 dates with the same person. This is while we're concurrently dating other people. And so there are times where people will tell me, well, what do I do if this person wants, he's inviting me to come over for dinner?
By the way, I love that rule. I love that rule.
And this is the thing. And and it comes back down to the same thing. A guy will say, listen, Katherine, you're so amazing. You're a mom. You're a kick-ass PhD. You teach. You're in clinic. You've got kids. Who's taking care of you? I want to make you dinner on Saturday night. And again, our empty cups are like waiting to be filled. Fill up that wine glass. Oh, yes, yes, yes. So you're going to make me dinner? How amazing is that, right? But what I tell clients is, look, you were walking into that person's territory. There's a bottle of wine, maybe two. It's his space. There's a bed. There's a couch. We all know what the happy ending can be. And suddenly you wake up and you're like, oh my God, how did this happen? The best thing to do is to stay out of those situations where someone might be trying to take care of you, but they could turn into situations that get dicey for you if you don't want to move that fast. So if somebody says, I want to cook you dinner, just say, I would love that. Maybe we can talk about that a month from now as our relationship grows. And, but maybe what we can do instead this weekend, would you want to go wine tasting at this great new place around the corner? Right.
Yeah, so you're describing exactly what we're talking about, being able to accept input and establishing healthy boundaries. There are no healthy boundaries with a love bomber, but with a love seeker, there can be a discussion about boundaries. And if that person really wants to get to know you, they are going to be receptive to taking your time. Look, we all can fall in love quickly. We can all have very strong feelings, but it really takes a long time to get to know someone. So slow your roll, right? But there is no slowing your roll with a love bomber. Absolutely none. And that's how you know, are you dealing with a love seeker, maybe even an overzealous love seeker, or are you dealing with a love bomber?
I love that, the overzealous love seeker, but that's okay. The overzealous love seeker can be put back into his or her sandbox, right? Yes. It's okay. And women can do that too, right? Like, oh, I'm going to bake him a casserole. And then tomorrow I'm going to bring over some homemade lemonade and some cookies. And then I'm going to, shower him with my 3 amazing apple, rhubarb, and apricot pies. It's like, whoa, slow your roll. Feels a little excessive, right?
That's right.
And here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, people need to earn you. Okay. So don't feel the need to do these grandiose gestures either, right?
I love that. People need to earn you. I love that.
They need to earn you. They need to earn your story. They need to earn making dinner for you. They need to, in a sense, earn the fact that they can love you and give you gifts and get to know you first, right? And there's so much beauty in that. A healthy person is able to do that. A healthy person will say to you, would it be okay if I brought you some flowers from my garden? Would it be okay if I baked you a pie? Because I'm going to bake one for my best friend. And I thought I'm going to see you on Saturday. And, would you be okay with that? You can ask for permission, right? So that you don't seem like a love bomber, but still do nice things, because we all want nice things done for us. And this is such a tightrope. And this is why I wanted to have Dr. Katherine on the show to talk about, sometimes it's not so cut and dry, right? And these are ways. I don't want you to be afraid to receive the love and the romance that you have so wanted for so long. And I certainly don't want you to be afraid to show your love and to show and to be generous with your time or your things. But again, do it within scope with communication.
Yeah, it's a negotiation, isn't it? And you have a love seeker who's willing to negotiate the boundaries with you, right? All of us have missteps, but it's about figuring it out together. And if you're not working together to figure it out, a love bomber has no concept of working together. It's about domination. But your love seeker will work with you.
Katherine, I don't know if you saw this documentary on Netflix a couple of months ago, but it sort of swept the world, and it was called The Tinder Swindler. And if you haven't seen it, it's very worthwhile because this dude bilked 3 different women. And I think ultimately they found him guilty of bilking and defrauding 10 different women to the tune of $6 million.
Wow.
Right. Oh. And he positioned himself. He said his name was Simon Leviev and that he was the Diamond Prince and that his family was a very wealthy family in Israel that was in the diamond business. And his business was very dangerous. And, I have a lot of enemies. And so, but what he would do, one of the opening scenes was he went on a date with a pretty girl. They swiped right on each other and he set up the drinks. I think it was at the Mandarin Oriental in some beautiful European city. And she shows up there and, he was, acting all cool. And he's like, listen, I'm a big businessman and I'm the Prince of Diamonds. And of course, they're in this extravagant setting and he's ordering everything off the menu. He's like, do you want to, I've got a jet and I'm leaving for Croatia for the evening. Would you like to come with me? And of course, she was like, I threw all good judgment aside and said, I texted my girlfriends, one of whom said, this dude might chop you up into 1,000 pieces and dump you in the river. Sounds a little crazy, but our basic instincts, what she said is we all have a little bit of the Disney princess inside of us that thinks that the Prince Charming does exist for me and that he's going to come along. And I thought, maybe my Prince Charming had arrived, and it put goosebumps on every cell of my body to hear that. And did she go to Croatia? Yes. Did she sleep with him? Yes. Did he defraud her? She was love bombed.
Yes. And it felt good for a minute.
Oh, and it felt amazing. The extravagance with which he treated these women, the finest hotels, the finest gifts. He would take them shopping. They would have these luxurious meals to the point where he was spending $50,000 to $80,000 a day.
So I think that's a great point because, what is the motivation someone would have to spend all of that money and to lavish you with gifts when they don't know you? I totally have to watch this. So thank you for letting me know about it. But, he doesn't know her.
It ended up being kind of a giant Ponzi scheme where he would be love bombing you, but then he had told me in the background, I'm the love bomber that I got love bombed by him last month, but now I'm reeled in. And then he would say, Bella, listen, I have a lot of enemies and they've just shot my bodyguard. I'm trying to get to a safe location, but my advisors tell me I have to turn off all my credit cards right now because those things are trackable and my enemies will know where I am. Could you send me $20,000? So what I don't know is that, and I'm in love with him now. I've been carpet bombed for a month and I'm like, oh, absolutely. Let me take out 3 payday loans because where am I going to find $20,000, right? As a 30-year-old woman, which is what these women were. And they would leverage themselves beyond belief and he would just have them send more and more money. Now, what I didn't know is I was sending the love of my life, Simon, money because Simon was love bombing you, Katherine. So it was a Ponzi scheme. He would take from Bella to give to Katherine, from Peter
love bombing with a twist.
Love bombing with the twist. It's a really amazing, dark documentary to show that even smart, beautiful women will fall prey to this. And why? Because it appeals to our most basic instincts that we can be rescued because we've been taught this since we were little girls.
Yeah. But even in that, as one of the hallmarks of love bombing is it's too good to be true. It's not real. It's not real. And so it's all about the fantasy. Create the fantasy of you're so wonderful, even though I don't really know you. So I'm going to shower you with everything and tell you how amazing you are. And that is unsustainable.
Yeah, it's seductive.
Very seductive.
And so I hope that this chat helps you guys to understand, is this a legit person or is this someone who's not legit? And legit meaning, is this person just a little clueless, just a little enthusiastic, just a little overzealous, and, brings you to things that seem like a little much? Or is he actually trying to manipulate and control you to ultimately kind of insidiously take over your life, right? Because love bombing is about entrapping you and dominating you and controlling you. So and
becoming the center of your world.
Right. So that he wants to be the sun.
Yes.
And you revolve around the sun.
Really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. One thing we forgot to talk about, the love bomber also may talk stuff about your friends and family, little bits of criticism here and there, because once again, that entrapment, as you just said, endears you to him or her.
Oh, so they might say, I don't think your best friend really likes you.
Yeah. And it might start off much more subtle. And then you kind of get more into more in-depth criticism.
Oh, so it's a trap.
Bella. It's a trap.
It's a trap. They're throwing shade. It's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. So nobody should be criticizing or condemning or throwing shade at the people in your world, because it could just be a trap to get you to cut your ties with
Big
them.
old red flag. Yep.
Big old red flag. That's so interesting. So interesting. And Katherine, is there anything else that you want to share with us that, we haven't picked up on, or any last words of wisdom that you want to share with our listener?
Yeah. Your love seeker will have some vulnerability that's real. Your love bomber will manufacture vulnerability, once again, as a form of entrapment. And it's fake.
Ooh, can you paint a little picture of what good vulnerability is versus bad?
Yeah.
Like something typical.
Yeah. So going back to your example of the show, like I Now Need to Watch, right? Where you've been love bombed and he's spending $50,000 on you. And then all of a sudden he has a crisis, right? And, that was a Ponzi scheme, but pretend it's not a Ponzi scheme. And it's now about give me back what I gave you and even more now that you're endeared to me, now that I have you. Right? It's about, again, power and control. So fake vulnerability tends to be over the top, right? And there are usually lies wrapped up in that.
Oh, wow. And I don't know if this is relevant, but I know we had a client that went on a third date with someone who up until that point seemed legit. They went out for a couple of nice dinners, nothing over the top. And on the third date, he basically said, well, aren't you going to have sex with me? This is what you do now.
Yeah. I bought you dinner.
We're like, this is not what you do. And this is not what anybody does. And this is certainly nothing anybody should be asking for. And it really took her off her game for a couple of weeks. And we're like, it's a one-off.
Yep.
This is bad on him, not of you. You said no, you caught him, and then he proceeded to berate her and belittle her. You're uppity, you're haughty, you're a prude. Nobody else is going to want you. You think you're so good, but actually and that is case in point, exactly what Dr. Katherine has described to us, right? She said, I don't want to sleep with you. I want to wait until I'm in a committed exclusive relationship because I'm being coached by Smart Dating Academy. And the dude went off.
Well, it's like, you owe me now, right? You owe me. So all of this over the top behavior comes at a cost. And the cost is usually you owe me, which is why your 15 date rule is amazing, because it takes time to get to know someone. And that really, time is the best teller of who is your love seeker versus your love bomber.
Oh, amen. We are so on the same page. I tell my clients there is no substitute for time in the dating world. None. We want to move the hands of time so fast. We want to get exclusive after 3 dates. We want that instant gratification. We want that instant Hollywood or Harlequin boyfriend. But the reason to wait and to take things slowly is true character is revealed when pressure is applied. When a bad situation comes up, everybody is great when the sun is shining. Remember, you are dating the representative of that person in the beginning, right?
Yes.
Long term, maybe their meal doesn't come out right at a restaurant and they ask for dressing on the side. Who does that, Bela Gandhi? And maybe the dressing came on the salad. How does that person react? Do they flip out? Do they berate the server? Or do they say, you know what? Would it be an inconvenience to remake that?
Yes.
And that's it, right? And it's how that person reacts to even small little incidents like that, which is very telling of somebody's character long term.
Is somebody's behavior consistent over time? Trust is built often by consistency in multiple settings, right? Is the person consistent?
I love that. Is the person consistent over multiple settings? Not meaning he's really nice to you or she's really nice to you, but not nice to the people around you, not nice when talking about others.
Yes.
Right?
And does the person do what they say they're going to do when they say they're going to do it most of the time?
Exactly. We're all human and we all forget things or flake out on things or make mistakes. But then do you own your mistake?
Yes, exactly. And love bombers and narcissists don't.
Oh, I am just love and information bombed by this segment. I mean, this is
information
awesome.
bombs.
And I love this so much. Love bombers versus love seekers. We all want a love seeker. And Katherine, thank you for being here with us. And
thank you for having me, Bella.
Oh my gosh. And my dear listener, I wish I am your fairy godmother of love. And remember, a couple of episodes ago, 7 ways you're going to find love this summer. I want you to get psychotically optimistic about your dating life and know that you are now well armed with the information about what is a love bomber versus a love seeker. So your chief psychotic optimist is telling you love will come to you. It's a when, it's not an if. And may he or she be a love seeker and not a love bomber. See you next week.